Well, that went wrong as well. So,
Well done, Mike.
hey!
It's going well tonight.
Yeah, so sorry for the random halfway through the intro beginning of the show. I pressed the go live and play intro, and it didn't want to go live. So us three enjoyed half of the intro, and then you guys joined us afterwards. So we are having some technical problems today because I literally just joined, and Mike was here and then disappeared. So standard NoFo welcome to everyone with technical problems. We are joined today by James, Ryan, and we will be talking all things. What would you say? Tactical communication. Would you say that's a good summary?
Anything communication, radios, comms, ATAK, anything.
Ironically, we're having issues with Mike, so communication is not our strong suit.
Yeah. But this is Mike, so this is like a general. Just want to say welcome to everyone. We're joined by Landnav Challenge, Chris Berry, Callsign Samurai, Abby, Drew, Mr. Aggravation. Still think that's the coolest name ever. Les and Mike. Welcome, Mike.
Mike's here. Mike's here in spirit.
We also are joined by Ash. He is here with us this evening. We'll kind of fill it a little bit while we're waiting for Mike to come in. James, do you want to just give a quick introduction to yourself for people that may not know you or haven't seen you about? Like, you're quite close friends with the show and obviously with JBG and stuff. So, if you don't mind, just giving everyone a little introduction to yourself.
Yeah. So my name's James Ryan James, whatever you want to call me. For any of you that do know, it's a little bit of a running joke. So I'm one of the sort of founders, owners of JBG. So we run different sites of training courses across Airsoft, mainly sort of focused around explosive method of entry, CQB. Recently just done a recce course as well, which I know a couple of like the NoFo lads attended. So our background is mainly either ex or current serving soldiers, mainly from sort of the infantry, so which is where we get our sort of knowledge and skill set. I've been playing Airsoft for best part of about 12 years now. So really sort of take that Airsoft knowledge and experience and the infantry side of things and sort of like teach you guys what works and what doesn't work and sort of adapt to the best way that's going to sort of improve your game and sort of working as a team. And yeah, I've been on the show a couple of times before, and probably been following you guys for since 2021, early 2021, I believe. So quite a while.
Yeah,
it's good to be back.
Yes, and it's good to have you back on, mate.
Indeed.
Obviously, you've been away a little while. I would say enjoying the sun. I've heard some stories. Obviously, last time we actually met up and saw each other, you'd just done your legging, hadn't you? That's
So
you were put over on deployment after
late
that,
20.
Didn't you?
Yeah, late 2023. Obviously, playing football for the battalion, and tore my ACL. So it's been close to 2 years of recovery. Still gives me a little bit of jip. Generally know when the rain's coming because it usually gets a little bit sore, like the old grannies in their hips.
I mean, it must have fallen off today with the amount of rain that came down today.
Yeah. God, blimey. I was driving up to Tewkesbury to go and pick up some stuff from a mate, and I think generally at times it was about 10 meters worth of visibility I had. It was pretty dangerous to say the least.
Yeah, it was good fun working at it. I'll tell you. We're still waiting for Mike. Mike's obviously falling apart. There's just one thing. Yeah. There's just one thing that I wanted to highlight to everyone. This is one of Bob's little news segments. I've started to see recently foregrips that have been designed as a knuckle duster. So it has a knuckle duster style like foregrip that attaches to your weapon. I'd just like to point out that if you are caught with one of those, it is classed as a dangerous weapon, even if it's made out of plastic. And it's like comes under the Criminal Offence Act. And so you see one, and they do look cool, but don't buy one unless you're in the UK. All right, if you're in the UK, because if a copper does see you with it, that is bad news for you.
All right. By the way, Ryan's looking. I'm assuming he's got one.
No, I've actually got the chat. I've got the YouTube chat next to me, so I was just reading up and see if there's any interesting comments. But it's just everyone saying hello.
Yeah. So yeah, literally, if you do stumble across one of these, make retailers aware as well if you see them. But they are still classed as they're still classed under the Dangerous Weapons Act of whatever. So please don't buy them or take them to an airsoft site.
Yes,
that's my little news of the day.
Press the button. It's not good.
Yeah. So Ryan, and Mike's obviously clearly not joining us this evening. So
he's rebooting, he says.
Yeah, well, it's all that really, isn't it, from him? So
crack on.
Yeah. You obviously you've had some experience within your shall we say career that you've dealt with a lot of communications and things for your work, obviously. What would be sort of your go-to sort of radios and things like that for an airsoft event? Maybe starting out from, say, like a real cheap beginner's level.
So I would always go to, especially for a starter, is the classic Burfang UV5R.
Mm-hmm.
They're not particularly expensive. They're fairly user-friendly, but they're also good for, like, as you start to learn about programming, frequencies, etc., like that, you can sort of take it still into that intermediate and even sort of slightly more advanced range as well.
And what do you tend to use like when you play at the moment?
So usually, I have a UV5R, but a couple of years ago, obviously when I started playing a lot more Milsims, and classically because of my job, I quite often got stuck either in a command role or a sort of radio operator type role, which meant I upgraded to a UV82. So it's a very similar sort of radio, but whereas the UV5R has 2 receives, but you can only send on one, the UV82 has 2 send channels. So it meant that I could, for example, have 0 net or command net on one, and then section/squad net on a different channel. And just with either the flick of a switch or a custom built PTT, I could just swap between each net to be able to talk to whoever I needed to at the time.
That makes sense.
So did you have to have the PT? I can't speak now. The PTT like custom made, or is that something that you can buy like off the shelf sort of thing with that sort of radio?
So when I bought the UV82, it came with the cheap Baofeng 82 PTT. So, you know, it is usable. But obviously being a comms guy doing a lot of Milsims, I knew it wasn't going to last. So I went out JCI. I've known him for, since I started playing about a decade ago. So he's obviously does quite a lot of custom stuff, both airsoft and military related. So I went to him and he built me something that I've had for about 6 or 7 years now, and that's still going strong. Still use it quite regularly. So my thing would always be, yes, it's expensive, but it lasts. So you spend the money now. It's the classic buy once, cry once.
Yeah. So just on the subject of PTTs, you got a preference to where you place it on your kit?
I would usually say like sort of top left shoulder-ish, it's usually where I end up having my PRR at work. It's handy because then it means I can have a sort of rifle in my right hand. I'm not taking anything off that fire control. And then I can obviously operate on the left-hand side. I have to be a little bit careful because I do swap shoulders quite a lot. But it's effectively like a play and learn. I've seen people put it sort of down on the cummerbund, so they kind of reach up and do it there. It all depends on like how much cabling you've got, what your like motion, like your maneuverability is within kit. Like I know people that have got shoulder injuries, they can't raise their arm up, so they tend to keep it a lot lower, for example.
So, what's your main radio at the moment? What's the one that you're like is your go-to for when you go out?
Yeah, the UV82 is like my go-to. That's the one that I'd always generally go to. Like I say, I predominantly end up having to run 2 channels. It means that I don't have to run 2 radios. You quite often see, people running 2 UV5Rs, one each side of the cummerbund, or obviously the classic sort of alley operator running 2 152s, which are the big green radios. I like to cut down the weight. Obviously, at work, I'm very used to having 2 nets, sometimes even 3 or 4 in one ear, and having to, work out quite quickly which net I'm talking on, what kind of voice procedure I need per each net. So for the 82, I usually have it so 0 net is my primary. So at any point, if that is sending, that comes through into my ear.
Right.
If say squad net, which is normally my secondary net, if that starts talking and there's no 0, then squad net comes through. The moment 0 starts talking, it cuts out squad net, and I'll obviously hear the 0 net come over the top. So you kind of sometimes get half a conversation in, and it switches.
Okay, yeah. So you can set a primary. So you can set a primary channel. So, or does it just kind of whoever's talking first kind of comes over?
No, it's the primary. So you set what you want as priority, and that priority will always take priority. So effectively, if your secondary net is talking, because there's no primary net, you'll hear that. But then the moment the primary net starts talking, it cuts it out, and primary net becomes what you're using.
Okay, cool.
I've seen people who have run 2 radios, so they get like say 0 net in their left ear and section net in their right ear.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I find that quite confusing because you've then got 2 people, especially when you're trying to send priority information. For example, if you've got a casualty, if you've got, if you're trying to command the battle or anything like that, you don't want, non-important information, kind of cutting into the side of your brain. I'd rather just cut all that out and deal with what I need to deal with.
Yeah, see, that's what I run when I run. Like if I'm running 2 sets of comms, so say like command and squad, I've got one of the dual buttoned ones, and I've got to admit it can get confusing sometimes. So I ended up bringing the radios more round to the front, so I can turn one right down if it's say command coming through. But then that's sort of a fiddle as well. Do you know what I mean? Because like if you are in a firefight or something, you're taking away your focus from that and turning down the radios that are on the front of my pouch.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I will quite often take a little bit of a step back. So I tend to, especially when I'm sort of playing as a radio operator, I'll sort of sit slightly outside of the battle, so that tactical sort of bound behind the rest of the section, to sort of basically be that kind of primary communication rather than, you know, having to return fire and such. I'd rather be able to communicate directly with the commander, and then obviously with zero net and passing the relevant information, because that's more important than necessarily getting rounds down range.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm a strong believer in, like, you know, as much as it's useful having the team lead or section commander able to talk to zero, actually their priority at that point is commanding the battle. That's where I'll sit back and sort of be able to liaise just with that one person, that one section commander, and then I'll pass all the information back. If that means I need to tell zero, wait out, we're dealing with something, then I can do that. That contact is taking priority.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's where it goes wrong a lot of times, though, don't it? Is that some people try and take on a bit too much at once, and kind of lose what they're doing at the time, then, don't they? Sense.
Yeah, you'll always get people who, every person in a fight, like every person within a role, always has a different priority. So that, you know, your commander of zero wants to know what's going on, so he's hounding you, trying to go, right, what's the situation? Give me a sit rep. The commander on the battlefield is trying to deal with a firefight. You know, he doesn't want to give a sit rep because he's too busy dealing with stuff. Could be a casualty, could be, you know, winning the firefight, could be working out what ammo everyone's got left, so he can tell the commander if he needs the next section to come through him. And that's always the problem, is everyone forgets everyone else has a priority.
I was going to say, I mean, in Airsoft, you don't tend to maybe get the same level of sit rep information needed to be fed back, like, you know, medevacs and things like that generally don't tend to be quite so much of a prevailing thing. But I know that I've always found just the sheer amount of comms that can come through from the squad net, because everyone's got a radio, everyone's just chattering. Then you've then got your command net, which obviously feeding the information out. Sometimes you've got, again, a massive command net with loads of different teams, where again the information that's coming through can just be general noise. And then you've also got people necessarily in front of you shouting stuff at you. And I always struggle to take that level of information in. I couldn't imagine running a radio in either ear, because that would be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've just got Mike doing that twice. I've got YouTube on next to me, so it just threw me off. Yeah, and that's, I mean, like I say, when I'm at work, I have probably I've got two nets, plus then obviously I've got a laptop in front of me, which is displaying sort of mapping on the ground. I potentially have GPS data from the guys on the ground. You know, there's effectively, if you like, WhatsApp style text channels with information. Because the one thing that like airsofters don't have to think about is about like how loud or quiet they are. And what I mean by that is, you know, we get on the radio and we just send up, we talk as much as we want. You know, we'll be sat on a stag position and we'll just be like, oh, I'm bored, what are you up to? Like, whereas at work, it's very much a case of like, you know, when you look at the RF spectrum, you'll see these massive spikes. It almost looks like a heartbeat. You know, people are looking for those spikes to kind of pinpoint and locate you. So the more we can do on sort of data, so over different types of frequencies. So I don't know if guys know, but UHF frequency, for example, like that's quite good for sending data. So it's still a radio frequency, but it sends small packets of data. It breaks it all down and sends it. So it's a much smaller spike, and you can kind of hide a lot of this data in the sort of the surrounding ground, if you like, of all the other chatter, which means that we can actually send like potentially photos, text messages, other things like this quite sort of secretively almost. So yeah, there's lots of things with work to think about, and I know there's a few like event organizers who are starting to bring some of these things in. We love to see NATO with all the Gucci kit, all the nods, the plate carriers, all sorts of stuff like that. But for some of us nerds out there, being able to like actually listen to enemy comms, like find out what frequencies they're operating on, like listen to those comms is actually quite exciting, and it's stuff that we can all do at home.
You might have to
See, I
show
like
me
the way
some
you
more of
say,
that.
yeah, I like the way you say nerdy, but that's proper like groundwork sort of thing. Obviously, like we've spoken about it in the past, and obviously you and me, like we've spoken about it, like in regards to, like especially on Milsims, where we can now have that technology where we can do that and listen to, or hack, in other terms, like the opposite team's comms. Obviously, that needs to be quite controlled in regards to like what you can, from an organizer's point of view. So maybe only giving you like a little window of when you can do it and things.
Yeah, I think I know. Well, both Sterling and Defiant have run a few kind of things for where, like, they'll have their kind of paid staff, if you like, playing op for. So, like, obviously, you've got the Machiavellian series for Defiant. I know Sterling have done something similar. Like, they have their kind of like themed or structured kind of. They're not quite games, but they're very similar to Machiavellian events. So, I think they did one recently in some urban city up in the north. North is north of the Watford Gap for me because I'm southern. But, yeah, it was somewhere. It was somewhere up further north than I am now. Let's put it that way. I forget where
like
it was.
true north.
Like, yeah. It was that kind of SRR style. So they're walking around with sort of radios hidden within clothing, earpieces in. And they'd obviously been given a photo of a HVT who was, being played by one of the Sterling staff. So they were using, radios, communication. Some of them maybe have been sat in a van with a laptop, like actually listening to certain frequencies to obviously be able to locate certain individuals. They're doing a little bit of urban surveillance, taking photos, etc., like that. So it's all that sort of, especially within that kind of environment, like I said, like the Machiavellian events, that you're kind of a lot more free to be able to do stuff like that. Whereas if you took a normal sort of battle sim or skirmish, listening to someone just chat about what they're doing, by the time you've listened to their comms and relayed it's useless information almost, because the battle moves so fast.
So obviously with Airsoft, we all know that comms are 99.9% the thing that people have issue with. Either their radio's not working or not being able to speak to each other through, like, you've both gone out and you've both bought a Bofeng UV5R, for example, yet you still can't talk to each other. What would be your best tip to kind of help people have more reliable comms within the Airsoft community? Obviously, like people that are using, say for example, the Harris, like obviously they've got their own sort of like setups and things that we can cover, but it was mainly for, like, because I would say most people within the Airsoft community use a Bofeng. Yeah, everyone always seems to have problems with them, and they can't be able to communicate. What would?
So
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I've always said is it's the same way that someone understands their rifle, right? They set up their rifle based on their preferences. So they have a grip set here because this is where it feels comfortable, or they've got this optic because that's what they like. You need to spend a little bit of time understanding the comms. For example, VHF frequencies. They generally work a lot better in open fields, or they can cover a much further area because it's a longer wavelength, but they don't penetrate structures as well. So they get stopped a lot more by like concrete, steel, other materials like that. UHF frequency, so ultra high frequency, is much better at penetrating concrete, steel, very much better for urban operations where, let's face it, most of us tend to operate at the likes of Longwheel, Copill Down, etc. on a Milsim, Driftfield, etc. But it's the wavelength is a lot shorter, so the comms don't go as far. So that's the first thing to understand. Now, predominantly, a lot of that will be set out if you're going to an event by the event organizer. They'll provide you with what frequencies they've got. You're obviously very limited based on if you do want to run it at skirmish, for example, you need to look into Ofcom licenses, amateur radio licenses. Yeah. But they've simplified the licenses a lot and given you more options now. So if you go onto the Ofcom's website and look at amateur radio licenses, you can sort of really pick the package so it costs a little bit of money. It's not very expensive, but it means that you can pick the license or what you want. And that will give you certain frequencies, certain places you can operate. You can now listen to repeaters. So it's a good stuff to just be able to be at home, go through a little bit of a training package and play around with them a little bit. So the big tip I would give is understand the radios a bit more. Antennas, massive thing. So for example, people are always like, oh, my radio's not working. It's probably either because your antenna isn't great, a slightly upgraded antenna, and I don't mean buying a £12 AliExpress antenna, because it's probably just a piece of
tape measure,
like definitely tape measure, literally inside some rubber. But like if you get a genuine, the common one, the one that I use and the one that's commonly talked about is the Nagoya 117. Lots of knockoffs off there, but if you can find a genuine one, generally they're very, very good. The ones, if you buy a genuine Berthing radio, the antennas that come with it, the little stubby ones, they're about that long.
Yeah.
Again, really good. So the first thing is always about the antenna, and then the second thing is going to be the settings. Most reason why people can't communicate is because they don't have the correct settings. If you start to watch a couple of YouTube videos, learn all about, the frequency and the settings and stuff like that, it will make a massive difference. If you've got someone who knows what they're doing, then learn off them. You can start to program them really easily. People will spend hundreds of pounds on a set of Peltors, like amps, a big, noise cancelling headphones. They'll want this really cool Gucci PTT, but they don't actually know what the radio's doing half the time, which is the problem.
What's your view on Chirp? Is it Chirp?
Chirp for programming a lot of the VFX.
Programming, yeah.
I use it. I've done multiple events, Milsim events, where I've done an entire team's radios in the space of 20 minutes, half hour. I usually have my laptop with me and a cable, plug it in the boot of my car, and literally people just find me a radio. I've got I'll basically create an Excel pre-format before I go, and I just load that in, upload to a radio. Takes me a minute or two if that, and then next radio, done. It's really easy. Again, it's one of those things.
Have you played around with the new things with the channel-to-channel transfer? It's like you can basically swap information by radio.
I haven't. A mate of mine has literally messaged me last night about that. He's bought one, and I'm hoping it's going to be here for the weekend. But I generally have my laptop with me at most events nowadays. Just literally out of the boot of my car, give me a radio, cool, it's done. So I can see it being beneficial, but I can also see it being a faff. I'm a big fan of just cabling it all up.
Yeah. I mean, the big one I've always noticed, because I'm in no way a radio expert, just to clarify, but I'd like to think that I know a little bit about stuff, mostly because Ryan has shouted at me that I should know about radios. But it's things like your RC TCSS and your DC TCSS and that sort of stuff, because that, to me, gets set at different events, whether rightly or wrongly, whatever the radio setup and frequencies you've got. But then people forget to change those. So they'll change like the main frequency and go, well, it's not working. Oh, the radio shit. You know, I need a new radio, I need a new aerial, all of this. But quite often there's just like a little simple setting. If you just tweak that, it's fine. And that's not complicated to fix. You just need to know what you're looking for, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously the easiest thing to do generally is you have both radios next to each other, and you just click up each setting to make sure they're the same.
Mm-hmm.
The reason, so as you were talking about, Mike, of like DCS, TCS, CTCSS, etc., get set by different event organisers. That's why I like Chirp. So I will literally, what I do with Chirp generally is I create a package. So I give it a frequency, I give it a name. So for example, usually it's something like 0 or whatever, like the team, for example. So if you've got section comms, it'll be whatever that section's named. And then I'll set all of that stuff in Chirp. And then that means that all those frequencies, all those names are saved. So rather than me having, when I'm on the ground, if I need to switch over to a different section's comms to get hold of them, for example, rather than me having to remember, that section's on that frequency, I just go, right, yeah, that's right, section 1, cool, section 2, yeah, section 3, right, I've got it right. And it's named literally section 3 or whatever. But it then means when I build a new package for the next event, I've got nothing like saved. I'm starting with a blank canvas. It literally is a blank. It literally looks like an Excel spreadsheet. Chirp, you've got all your things across the top. They're like drop-down boxes, but I've got a blank canvas, and all I do is upload that to the radio, overwrite everything else. So I find that a lot more helpful than having to manually program, sit there, because what you have to go do on a Burfang is go to the frequency channel, put the frequency in, write all the settings in. So there's 28 different programs that you have to potentially look at and make sure they're all correct. Then you save it, and then you have to go back and do that for every single one. It's just too time consuming to manually try and do it.
I suppose the struggle as well is that sometimes different Baofangs have different ways to go through the menus and change the menus as well, isn't there? Once you're there, it's the same, but getting to it can be a bit of a nightmare sometimes with some different radios.
Yeah, so for example, if I take the UV82 that I use and a UV5R, they do have slightly different menus. But the benefit of Chirp is I can literally, it's the same package. All I need to do is when I upload it is just change. I need to say I'm uploading it to a 5R or an 82. It gives me a few little other options and stuff like that. But again, most of the time I set those. The main difference is, for example, when uploading that package is to do with the priority channel, because you can communicate on 2. So I do that manually on the actual radio itself anyway, which is not particularly hard. And this is exactly what I'm saying. It's like if you've got 2 mates or a few mates, or if you've got buy 2 radios, and just have a play around. You honestly, I know Marky Mark asked something in the channel about where to get some comms knowledge from. YouTube doesn't have to be Airsoft. There's so many little little prepper radio. Yanks have loads of it. There's always guys.
There's so much, isn't there?
Yeah. They'll literally sit there and they'll be like, yeah, I've programmed in this repeater and that repeater. So they're listening to police radios or, some channel or some apocalyptic Rebro or something like that they're talking to their mates halfway across the US on, they'll plug little devices in and show, oh, this radio gets this amount of power output. This radio gets, this. I can talk this far with it based on these parameters. There's so much information out there from like radio enthusiasts on YouTube. It is the best source of information to go to.
Yeah, literally, you type in like how to program my Bofang into YouTube, and there's got to be millions of videos. It does come when I did it, when I was looking for it, there is actually probably sometimes a little bit too much information there for you to sift through. I find sometimes, so especially with my growing intelligence, you do have to kind of cherry pick the information that you're taking from the videos. The one that always confuses me is security codes. The security thing, like on the Bofangs,
you can lock yourself out of some of the Bofangs. They do have a lock function.
Yeah, and I'm like,
really frustrating.
How do I get through this now? Like, I didn't even know I set this.
So the classic thing that we always used to do is like change the language. So you turn it back to Chinese or something like that. It was quite funny. And you have to remember, obviously, like for us, it would just be a set of numbers. So you push menu and then you go, right, 9 is language, and then you whatever. So you have to remember how to do that via numbers, because you obviously can't understand a word of what anyone else is saying.
Yeah.
So the I don't have the sound effect, unfortunately. Sit down, mushy.
Sit down, mushy.
Yeah. I've not had that one in a long time.
No, sorry. I normally have it queued up, but because I've had to jump onto my laptop because the main PC died, so I don't have it tonight. So yeah, sorry about that.
That's not good enough, Mike.
No, I know. I'll learn and do better. Ryan, there was a question from Chris about the 82, and this is actually something I'm keen to know the answer to. So with the 82, so this is the Baofeng UV82, what would you recommend for a port?
Can you explain what you mean by a port?
Well, I think he means PTT.
Yeah, it does mean PTT.
And I
put
took
it literally underneath.
Oh, there you go. Sorry. I took it as PTT. The reason being is that, so for those who don't know, the Baofeng UV82 is a dual PTT radio. So it has the ability there's 2 PTT buttons on the side of it. So rather than having to change the channel, you can just broadcast by the PTT to 2 different channels. But I've always wondered if an external PTT, how you would run that.
So these are 2. I can show stuff on here. It's not guns, is it?
No, that's fine.
As long as it's not gun, that's fine.
So I've got two examples here. So this one is a Motorola speaker mic. So this was my original PTT from JC iComms. So this one's got a few more bells and whistles. So I've got it with you probably can't see that, but this is a Lemo connector.
I'll make you bigger. There you go.
So this is the 5-pin for pretty much running any British Army standard headset. So the classic one-ear green comms. My Peltors run this as well. But it's a speaker mic. So if I want to run loud, so quite often if I'm just at a skirmish, for example, like that, and a couple of the guys are using comms to find each other, I'll just run this. So it's got a little switch here, which I can basically turn the speaker off or on. So just literally with a flick. And then on one side, I've got one channel. So this is a button here. And then I have a second button underneath, which is for my second channel here. And obviously just plugs straight into, it's been modified to run a Kenwood 2-pin, which is what a standard Baofeng radio would run. So that's probably my most used, purely because of how diversifying, like it is, like I say, really useful in a skirmish or anything like that, where I'm not really bothered about being quiet. I just want to be able to hear guys communicate a little bit and say, right, I've just died. I've come back in from respawn. Right, where are you guys? I'll come meet up with you.
I mean, it's got quite a satisfying click as well.
Yeah.
See, I like that, yeah. Because the one I've got's got no click, so I don't know if I've pressed it, which is really irritating. So I've got one of the double ones. like where it's got 2 buttons on the side, and it's got no click. So I'll press it, and then I'm like, I'll speak, and that I won't have a reply. But then because I don't know that I've pressed it, it's a real big downside to it.
Yeah, and one of the big things I'd also say, like one of the biggest issues that people run into is, nets being taken up by live miking. So if you've got a really soft button, or if you've got a button that keeps getting pushed by your kit, like it could be fine when you stood up, but the moment you take a knee, you've got a mag pushing against something. It's then meaning you're constantly on send. It's a real pain in the ass when you're trying to like run a team, for example, like that, or communicate, command a battle, because you can't actually talk to anyone, which is the drama. So this is a British Army issued style PTT. So again, it's just been modified to run a Kenwood 2-pin. Again, been modified as well with 2 buttons. So you can see here I've got top, quite a good button as well, and then bottom, and then it's got my standard Lemo connector here, so I can run it into. This is more what I've run for Milsim. Obviously, very much sort of more Milsim looking, and it just means, again, it's got a few less features. It doesn't have any sort of speaker or anything like that, so I have to run it with a headset. But it looks a bit more the part. It's a little bit newer. And yeah, pretty much they're the kind of 2 options. I know a few of you guys know Rich McRae from, like a lot of the Defiant events. He's just had one made by 5-4 Communications. And he's done one where he's got the buttons, one here and then the second one here. But it's exactly the same box, very similar sort of design. The other thing I've got on this one is very hard to see, but I've got a button here. So when I'm swapping, and this comes back to people understanding comms, and I always forget which way around it is, the Baofengs, basically headsets, like issued headsets, so you're kind of expensive, your genuine Peltors, other things like that, they don't need to be amped. Whereas the sort of cheap knockoffs that you buy on AliExpress, Amazon, etc., they do need to be amped. So if you haven't got it amped, what will happen is you'll just sound like you're really, really quiet. It'll almost be like a mice whisper. So I had an internal amp built into this one, so I can turn it on and off. So if I want to run a cheap headset, for example, off of AliExpress, I can still run that. If I want to run my genuine ones on my helmet, I can turn the amp off and I can still communicate perfectly fine. So it's just little niches like that can be quite difficult to get your head around, which is really useful when you go to someone like 5-4 Communications, JCI, etc., to sort of understand what you actually need. If you've got a setup like, right, I'm using a Baofeng, for example, I'm using this headset, this is how I want it to work, it's quite handy.
Interesting. Andy, I think you muted.
I was just going to say, moving on to headsets, unless that doesn't answer that question for Mike.
Yeah, it does. Sorry, my laptop died. I have no power cable for the laptop. Really well.
So you're back on the PC.
Yeah,
back on the PC. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jeez. He'll be on his phone next.
Yeah.
Carrier pigeons by the end of the show. No, it does. I mean, the main thing for me, I'll be honest with you, I didn't appreciate that you could have a dual channel PTT off a Kenwood 2-pin. I didn't realise they were that clever, to be honest with you. So that's useful to know. Because whenever I've run a dual channel PTT, it's always been 2 separate radios. So it's just 2 Kenwoods basically coming out, and you just plug them into 2 separate radios. But the 82 is a good option if you are looking at running dual comms, because it does have effectively 2 radios within one for all intents and purposes. I'm probably massively oversimplifying that, but
no, it's exactly that. I think you just need to be like, there's an element of people have struggled understanding about like priority channels, secondary channels. So, you know, they're listening, they're always like, oh, I can't hear these people. It's like, well, it's because you're listening to this person or whatever like that. Or they get really confused because they're listening to half a conversation and then it all of a sudden stops and someone else starts talking. So it can get quite confusing for people. So it's just like little practices, like understanding that kind of side of things is quite handy. And I know, which is why I know a lot of people prefer to run how Andy was talking about earlier, of like one in the left ear, one in the right ear.
I mean, it's just simple. Like for a quick way of setting it up, if you are running, say, like dual comms, I went down that route because it was just a lot simpler. Like I could literally just have one radio permanently tuned into that one, lock it off, and that's it, job done. And then the other one, and then just change the volume as and when needed. But it can get very complicated because I run, because of obviously like work and using drills and stuff. My hearing needs to be a little bit more protected now. I'm getting older, so I run Peltors. So when you've got someone talking to you like face to face, and then you've got both channels going at the same time, it can get a little bit overwhelming sometimes. So I think looking forward, if I do go down that route, it might be like the way that you said, having like a priority channel and just having it off of one radio and just going into one ear might be a bit better.
Yeah. I mean, it's only really works with running helmets, but getting the like arc rail adapters for like Peltors, running them on the rails, you can obviously pop them out. So something I think I did at Ley Loken when it was getting really hot towards the end of the day was you can either, or if you are talking face to face, I can just pop them so I can still kind of hear, but it's a bit quieter. Or if you're like, I'm really hot, pop one side, put it up to the back of your helmet, you've still got the comms on your left-hand side. So I've still got both comms there, but it just means I get a little bit of airflow, at least to some of my head, for example, like that is something that I find quite beneficial. And then I'd always recommend as well, like having a helmet mounted option, because if you do need to, you know, especially within like a Milsim environment, if we talk about soft posture, so looking slightly less threatening than we need to be. Like if I'm in a full combat scenario and we're assaulting buildings, helmet's great, you know, stops me bumping my head, stops me getting, you know, if a grenade gets thrown, anything like that, looks the part. But if I just want to go and do a small little patrol, or if I'm stood on stag, don't want to have that helmet on with me 24/7. So having something that I can quickly just plug into that PTT, you know, and just put on, whether it's an earpiece like the security guards wear, or like the classic like Bowman one ear, it just gives me another option. So having 2, sometimes 3 headsets isn't a bad option.
Yeah. See, I generally, with my Peltors, didn't actually take them off the original bands because I found if you get rid of the ped in your helmet in certain areas, it fits quite nicely and comfortably anyway. And then, like you say, you take your helmet off, you still got your headset on and everything like that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and that's what I do for work. Cause I can't run them. I haven't got like rails on my work helmet, but obviously for what I find for like when I have that option when I'm running like an ops core, is I then have to take my helmet off to then be able to like give myself some airflow. Whereas on the rails, I can just pop them out, put them like to the side or whatever like that, you know, talk to someone. Whereas like you're constantly, I've done it before at work where you're like trying to listen to someone or talk to someone face to face. You're like, what are you saying?
I find with any of the over ear stuff, like unless you've got the audio magnification as well, so the audio protection, that I can't hear what's going on. Like if I've got earpieces in both ears or anything like that, all I'm hearing is comms. I've got no peripheral sound availability. I quite like the Bowman for that one because it's effectively like an open ear headset, so I can get some sound coming through. But anything that's like in ear or anything like that, because I was like the proper security guard, like the audio coil tube, like the clear one that you see. I used to run one of that for a long time. But if I wanted to get any peripheral hearing out of my left hand side, I had to take that out, otherwise I couldn't hear.
Oh, well, then it got shot out of your ear.
Then it got shot out, and then it might
shot into his ear.
Yeah, that's the problem. But yeah,
I've got to admit, that's one thing that
horses for courses, basically.
Yeah, you do need to get used to it, like especially with the Peltors. It's because obviously it's just got the microphones on each thing, and it just puts the sound through the whole thing. I've got 2 early models, and it's you hear rustling, but it's in both ears. And then the other set that I've got, they changed it slightly. So if this one picks it up, it just comes through on this side, but you can't tell where.
It gives you some spatial awareness. Yeah.
Whereas the older set literally just goes, I've picked up a sound, here it is. And you're like, okay.
So in terms of headsets then, what would be a more budget friendly option? Especially seeing as I am currently in the market to replace mine as they're not working.
Do you know what? It's probably the one thing that I've not... Okay, my question is, what is budget to you?
Well, yeah, that is subjective, I know. I'd happily pay like 120, 160 maybe at the top end, because I know you can find some second-hand Peltors for that sort of price if you're lucky.
I mean, you might be
able
to
get
that price.
I don't know. I would you can't get repaired that easy anymore because they're out of commission.
They're not.
They don't make parts.
Kind of, sort of. So it's
unless you can set a pet up.
No, so
just trade.
No, so I'm not 100%. I will stress I'm not 100% on this, but I do know the British Army have just purchased thousands, if not millions, of sets of XPIs. I don't think the XPIs are out of service. I think what they are is it's like a generational thing. So we'll be on XPI generation 5, for example. So I think what they've effectively done is they've stopped servicing, because we sold off loads. There was a real influx of Peltors in the market a year, maybe 18 months ago. And the price really came down. You could pick up a full set for less than 200 quid. They're back up now. A set of XPIs will set you back about 200 quid. I'm seeing them for about 250 with the boom mic, which is a decent deal. If you see them at 250, you ain't going to find them really any cheaper. That sort of seems to be the going rate. And if you want a set, I would pick it up for that. Boom mic, Peltors, 250, go for it. I know Jaeger Precision. James over at Jaeger has been playing around with the Earmores. I think they do a tiered system. So you've got like a cheap set that 50. I think he paid 80, maybe 100, 120 for his. But that might have been with the rails. I've not had much to deal with those, to be fair. I've heard lots of mixed reviews. But again, if they do tiered systems, you might hear loads of stuff about the bottom end stuff that kind of makes it sound like they're not great, but the top end stuff they might have had no issues with. It's not something I particularly have played around with too much.
Generally speaking, do you see XPIs going wrong quite often in the military or anything like that? Or
no? Do you know what? That I've had mine. I've had my MSA Swordins, which are effectively basically it's just a competitor's Browns version of Peltors. I love them. I think they're brilliant. The only thing I've had wrong was where I had them stored in a storage locker for about 4 years whilst I was doing some bits, and all the circuitry is rusted. So I needed to get them squared, which I did thankfully get them sorted. And they're working absolutely fine now. But yeah, that was the main thing that I've seen go wrong with them. I've known a couple have some issues. Usually they're electronics, but it's after a good while. If they're looked after properly, they're usually okay.
I must not be looking after them properly. So first set, granted they're both like second-hand ones, but the recent set's more new XPIs, had all the packaging and everything like that, and it's been working fine. I changed out the batteries because they'd been on maybe 6 or 7 Milsims in a long time, and I was going shooting, so I wanted to make sure they're fine. And then they just come up low voltage as soon as I try and turn them on, turn off straight away now. And I've tried several different brands of batteries.
So that's a very similar thing that I had. So I was in Kenya and I was using my sword-ins, and I would turn them on, and sometimes they would last a few seconds. Sometimes if I kept my head, it was almost like if I kept my head in the right place, they would last for a couple of minutes. But as soon as I moved my head, like for example, they would turn off. And I like I say, I sent them out to a good friend of mine, and he opened them up and said, yeah, the circuits, there's a load of rust and stuff like that on the circuits. So it might be worth getting someone to have a look internally at them.
Terry said,
literally, if I hold the button to keep them on, works perfect. I've just got to hold the button the whole time. As soon as I let go, voltage turns off. I was toying with an idea of having something taped on it, just holding the button constantly.
So earshot communication, repair them in Chester.
Cirencester.
Who did I contact? I did contact someone, and they said they didn't do the parts anymore for them, so they might not be able to repair them.
Yeah, I've been told that on at least one occasion, but it's one of those things where.
In fact, it was Earshot Communications that messaged. They said I could send them in, but they probably can't repair them because they can't get hold of the circuit boards and stuff like that. He said.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't see many boneyard ones. Like, I mean, if you could find a cheap set that had the good circuit boards, but maybe had something else wrong with them, you could repair them. But I don't see many boneyards going around.
Even then, it's quite tricky to repair because of the conforming coating they've got on them.
Yeah,
which surprises me that they can susceptible to the corrosion and stuff like that with the mount they put on them. But,
but all you need is just that one little bit of moisture to get in behind it, and that's it. It's just going to spread, isn't it? So
I've had
once it's got in there,
I've thrown some silicone pads in it, and I've had them sitting around for a while. So I'm fingers crossed, hoping, but I doubt it's going to
happen. Take them out and they've doubled in size.
There's a few comments in the chat, and I know a few lads have run like a lot of the sort of knockoff reproduction headsets. You know, like the Bowman headsets. You get I forget who makes it, but it's like a 50 to 90 quid Peltor knockoff. Tatcom, is it, or something like that?
Yeah, Tatcom. I think I remember that.
A few people have had some good results with them. You've just, like I said, you've just got to remember that they're not amped. So if you do buy like a PTT or anything like that, you need to make sure that you're getting the right PTT, depending on what radio you're using and what headset you're using. So that's always just things to consider. So if you do go to somewhere like JCI or 5.4, like maybe get something like the amp button put in so you can swap between two different types of headsets, like a genuine set and a non-genuine set. Otherwise, you're buying multiple PTTs and setups for, each headset effectively.
Yes.
Yeah, because but also as well, I had one. So one of my headsets was NATO configuration. The other one was something else. Or there was two configurations.
Oh yeah, you've got.
So are you talking about the connect? Are you talking about the connectors on the end?
No, something actually inside the headset.
Because it's in the PTT, isn't it? So the NATO plugs have two versions. They've got a mil-spec version and a Civi version, and all it is switching one wire to a different pin.
Yeah. So I literally sent both headsets, all my PCTs, my radios, and everything all in a box, and I said, "Make this lot work, like together." I think it was 5.2 communications.
Yeah.
That I sent
Another
it to.
Mark's just reminded me of something actually. So a really common thing that I see, the amount of people that bought me a radio and go, "Oh, this frequency doesn't work on this radio." When you take the battery off of UV5R, there's usually a sticker inside. And I've got it here. So a genuine UV5R, or at least like the kind of main one, shall we say, will run at frequencies VHF 136 to 174 megahertz and 400 to 520 megahertz on the UHF range. If the frequency is not working on your radio, have a look at that sticker, because a lot of the cheaper versions are running just 430 to 440 megahertz. So they're not programmed to take all of the frequency range, which is why it won't accept the radio. So if it will let you key it in, but as soon as you hit that last digit, it will just go back to whatever you had on there originally. So that's something to consider, because I've definitely had people come up to me before and be like, "Oh, I can't get on this frequency." Yeah, because your radio isn't you haven't like effectively bought the right radio, if you like.
Is that the difference between sort of tri-band and stuff like that? Is that
no?
Is
So,
that
the tri-band and the dual band, the tri-band and the dual band relates to UHF, VHF, and HF. So a dual band UV5R, for example, will give you VHF and UHF frequencies. So that's what it means by the band. Let me see. Which one is it? I've got my box of goodies down there. Here you go. So it's obviously very difficult to see because I've got the thing in the way, but you'll see here. It's probably that. This basically sticker says what the frequency range is of this radio. So if you look at one of the others, it will just say something like 430 to 440 megahertz. So you want one that's got a larger frequency range effectively. I don't know if you've got it. There you go. It's probably a lot easier for you to see. So you can see here, just where my finger is, it's got their frequency ranges here. So this one, for example, does 136 to 174 megahertz. So that'll be a VHF, 220 to 260, and then 400 to 520. So if you're having issues and you can't accept the frequency, that's probably the first thing I would look at.
Yeah. So is it best? Which one's best to go for? The one with the higher range, like the larger range.
Yeah. So generally, you want the one that says 400 to 520 megahertz.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
I didn't even know that one.
Just
I was just looking on the back of my radio and I didn't have anything like that. I was like, worried now.
Just while we're talking, obviously frequencies and stuff. I know you mentioned obviously the off-watt website and everything earlier, Ryan. That appreciate the fact that anything over half a watt in the UK technically needs a license. I think that's right in terms of the power output. So you do have to be. I mean, I know a lot of people that run Baofengs don't really realise this, and I don't know on how much they have off-watt vans driving around, arresting Baofeng users for breaching those regulations of power and stuff like that. But I believe if you run over half a watt of power, then technically you need to have an off-watt license for that. Ofcom, sorry, yeah, not off-watt. Off-watt's work. Ofcom. Yeah, you need to contact the water authority. But basically, there's a simple UK light license or something like that, which is £75 for 5 years.
So I looked at this recently, but I looked at this literally this weekend. Mike, they've changed all of this.
Okay.
Now I couldn't find that license. They've now split it into 3 different Ofcom licenses.
Oh, I apologise. I'm just talking a load of waffle.
No, because that's the one thing where I'm not very knowledgeable, because obviously I don't generally have to deal with a lot of that side of stuff. Like I say, it's always a little bit questionable but generally, like, the event organizer will have a business license that will cover certain frequencies. So when you're at an event like a Milsim, you're usually covered under their license. What you're saying about the half watt is, like I say, I forget exactly what it is, but you're very much right. The bow things aren't covered under that because they have a removable antenna. The half watt is almost for you kind of classic walkie-talkies. Some of your Motorola's that have a fixed antenna and usually have your PMR channels programmed in. So they're like your kind of 16 commonly used civilian channels.
Sorry, I've just looked it up. So basically, we're talking PMR license, the PMR frequencies. You can't use the PMR frequencies with more than half a watt of power, because I think they're the ones that most commonly get used for things like, the old school baby monitors and stuff like that. The reason that why kids' radios and baby monitors and everything like that would interfere with each other, and you could almost use one to contact the other, was the fact that they were using similar frequencies. And I think the intention with the half watt is that you don't get some bell end with a 20 watt radio start fucking spamming those channels, which then will kill everyone else's kind of like, domestic little radios and walkie-talkies and stuff that they're using.
So the new Ofcom licenses, from what I could at least understand or see, they are now requiring a little bit of some knowledge. So you have to prove that you've done a certain course, which a lot of it's like City and Guilds, which stuff you could normally do either free or fairly cheap on a computer, but it just proves that you have at least an understanding of radios, frequencies, and stuff like that. 9 times out of 10, like I say, I've never seen an Ofcom van. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have an issue with it. The main drama comes when you're around, like, especially airports, because if you start, a load of the burr things come pre-programmed with emergency services channels. Don't ask me why. It seems really silly for me, but they will quite often, if you start using those channels, and I have heard of this around places like Heathrow, that's when you start to get into trouble, because you start then playing around with people that are actually on those, doing a job on those licenses.
Yeah, and I mean, like, especially like places like we know the Redcon, which is Aberdeen Air Base. Obviously, they must have some sort of communications sort of set up there, but we've never really had any sort of issue. Like,
they'll probably
they've
be
never come
encrypted,
over,
though, wouldn't they? I'd expect them to be more encrypted.
It doesn't matter. Even even if you've got an encrypted channel, you won't be able to hear it. You'll get a static, almost like a live mic, almost. But it'll still be able to talk.
Oh, okay.
So just because if you're communicating on the same frequency, it doesn't matter that it's encrypted or not. It won't, or at least in the encryptions that I know, won't stop that like interfering with each other.
I'll do a little bit of homework for next week and come up with some information on the licensing, and I'll do a little bit of a NoFo search on that front.
The benefit that I did notice from the video that I watched on the Ofcom website was they've looked and actually increased a lot of powers. So you can now talk a lot more. I think they went from 5 watts to 10 watts off the top of my head, for example, on the amateurs.
Yeah.
And there's now 3 different bands. So you have, like, recreational hobbyists. So probably more what, most people listening to this would be using for like the odd weekend. But then you get like a more advanced for people that want to, sit in their basement and listen to repeaters and, talk to people halfway across the world, etc. So yeah, it was at least the research that I looked into was a lot more accessible and made a lot more sense.
Yeah, because I know that the new Baofeng one that they've made to look like the 152.
Yeah.
The AR 152.
Yeah, the AR 5.
You mean the?
Yeah.
Do you mean the
That's what I've got.
UV5R in a
in a box?
in a
But they're
case?
saying, but they keep saying that it's 10 watt.
Yes, it's very much one of those things where it's advertised in a lot of different places. There's a lot of like reproductions out of it and stuff like that. So it very much depends where you go from. Baofeng do have a UK website. You can buy direct off them. Whereas if you go onto somewhere like eBay, it can be very hit and miss as to what you're actually getting, which is why, like I said, knowing things like the frequencies, like the 400 to 520 megahertz rather than the 430 to 440, look in the information or the detail on the selling page to see what it actually does.
And I've bought from various places. I mean, I generally went down the route of, rather than buying spare batteries for the UV5R back in the day, I'd just buy a new UV5R because the charger and a spare battery was almost the equivalent cost of just buying a brand new radio. And you know, for running around and like, but I don't think that the Baofeng website is much more. And to get a little bit more surety as to what you're buying, I think that's a good way of doing it.
I've got to admit, the new AR 152, the battery life on that is
that's amazing.
It's ridiculous. So I put it on radio, so it was like constantly like playing music, and it ran for 3 days straight before starting to like say that it was running low on battery. But it lasted about 3.5 days, just of constant use.
Looking on the Baofeng website, the UK website now, the 152 is listed on there as 10 watt in their descriptions.
So here's a standard UV82 battery. So this is 2,800 amps.
Yes.
That's one I bought off of AliExpress.
That's the extended, yeah.
Which is the extended one. But that alone, or a standard UV5R, now considering I'm usually running 2 channels, lots of comms, so my radio is constantly going, I will normally get through an entire weekend on one of those. So I normally start with that one, and I usually sometimes towards the end of the weekend will carry that with me as just in case, but I don't normally need it. The Baofengs are very, very good. I've seen most people on a UV5R extendo battery, which looks similar to that. Run an entire weekend. So yeah, I don't particularly think you need a lot of battery. Normally, I would say have a second just in case. The biggest battery issues I've always seen is people turning up to an event with a not charged battery.
Yeah.
Even for guns.
Mate, yeah.
Done it.
I think I want to say the Baofeng website, you can buy a UV5R that comes with obviously the battery with the radio and a spare on their website for not very expensive. If you can do that, well worth doing.
I got to admit the Baofeng car charger, like, you know, the old school plug in your cigarette lighter. That thing is phenomenal. Like, it must be a fast charger, because like literally an hour's drive from my house to a site, and it was fully charged and literally lasted 2-3 days. So that's well worth getting.
As Mike was said, the new, I want to call it the UV17 Pro. I say new, it's something that's just become aware to me, at least anyway. That, when I was looking at it last night, had a USB-C port for charging on the back, so you could power that off of a battery pack. So if if you've got 3 or 4 hours of downtime, when you're getting your head down at a Milsim, you could just chuck a battery charger into that power bank and charge that, which would be another way to do it.
I was just going to say, honestly, whoever at Baofeng came up with the fact that you can get a battery that's got a USB-C port on it, they are doing amazing work. That person deserves a raise. And all batteries should now on have a fucking USB port, because having to have a separate thing that you then have to plug into something else, it's got to go. It's just ridiculous. Like
Yes.
the ability to charge it from a power bank is just phenomenal. So please do that, and more radios if you are listening, Mr. Baofeng.
Mr. Baofeng.
Yeah, USB-C type charging on that one. Right,
just looking at the chat, James, thank you very much for that. He's confirmed exactly. Players don't need licensing off the event organizer, have it sorted, and it issues the comms plan under their license. So, yeah, if you want to buy a UV5R or something similar, so you can communicate, and I stress this enough, if you're going to a Milsim or a battle sim, everybody needs a radio. Communications is the biggest thing in the world when it comes to a Milsim.
I've pressed the button.
So
what a professional show we run.
The point James is making there, obviously, completely get it. You don't need licensing of the event organizer if you're going to an event. The point I'm trying to make is that not everyone listening to this channel is Milsims. This is obviously, we talk general airsoft as well. And skirmish days and private events won't necessarily have that in place.
No.
So completely agree. Well, not in any way suggesting that James is wrong there, but I think the point is that you don't always go to those events. So if you do, fine, no problem at all. But I would query whether all event organisers do that, because I guarantee you they don't. And then secondly, if you're going to be using your radios or anything like that outside, we obviously have there are laws in the UK, and it's just a case of trying to make sure that you follow them. So I don't want to start advocating just completely ignore them. But James has followed on later. He said, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people come to events and say they have their own frequency under their license. And then he follows on, because that's not true. There really are a small amount of frequencies under the business leisure licenses that are all the same, so they fuck up the comms plans. And that's the biggest problem, is the fact that if you go to a proper Milsim event where there is a proper comms strategy and plan in place, if you then just start rocking up doing whatever the fuck you want, and it's the same with comms, it's the same with how you play, it's the same with, I've only brought one camo pattern instead of the required camo pattern. If you go into an event that tells you that they've got something in place, follow what they've got in place. Don't start just thinking, it'll be fine, I've done that before.
Because most of the time they've spent money and time sorting it out for you.
Yeah.
So do them the decency of appreciating their work and listen to them. 100% agree with James there on that.
I'm conscious of time, and I know that
we got
James, you've got a big. I find it hard to call you James because I've always known you as Ryan, so I'm going to call you Ryan. We've got a big growing emergence of new technology in the form of ATAK. A little bit mesh-tastic. I know there was some chat about that earlier, but I don't know how much you want to stray into the various areas of discussion. But I'm just with the time that we've got, do you want to move on to the ATAK stuff? Because I know that that's a new and emerging thing, and it's a much more picturesque form of communication in terms of where your team are sitting, rather than relying on verbal communication only.
Yeah, of course. So TAK, ATAK, ITAK, basically tactical awareness kit, is something that is run either on a laptop, tablet, or a phone. A lot of people have started using it airsoft-wise in the form of like the Blue Force tracker, but it's something I've been working quite hard on recently to sort of build and get going. So currently, this is literally a little mini computer. This is a Raspberry Pi 5, so it's a single board computer, and that is what is running my TAK server. So that is effectively running all the information. So that runs all the mapping and all the GPS location, and then people connect their phones via a profile. to that. I'm just using like 5G, so you like your standard SIM cards. But I am working on some other options. For example, Longmoor's quite awful with phone signal, so I'm looking at ways I can sort of still give you GPS location. But the benefit is obviously most people have now got some sort of drop-down device on their chest where they can view their phone. You can basically see people's location on the ground. So it's basically like any sort of other GPS. It's just a little dot, a little name. Used it the last battle sim I went to at Longmoor, just within the team itself, and it was really, really useful for being able to see where friendlies were. So as we died and respawned, we could be like, right, that's where the main bulk of the section are, or we've got people in this building, this building, and this building, so they're all friendly, for example, like that. So there you go. There's a perfect example of ATAK. Not only can you view like live locational data, but we can put points on the map. So like the red triangles, for example, like that, they would be enemy locations. So if you've seen enemy in a building or anything, or like if you were doing some sort of recce and you're like, right, there's a mortar position or a machine gun position, you could plot that on the map. Everyone else can then view it, and they've got a better understanding of what like the tactical situation is on the ground. So that's sort of ATAK in a very simple sense. It's basically, again, something that I've found really helpful for the Milsim side of things is how often have you got, zero constantly on the net going, one section, where are you? Two section, where are you? Having some sort of laptop or tablet in sort of HQ, they can just look and see, right, you don't even have to update the map. Your phone is doing that automatically for you. And they go, right, one section currently occupying these three buildings, two sections occupying these three buildings. We're fairly confident, these buildings are now friendly. So we can then, start to organise the battle and objectives based on that. And then if you are in a contact, as we were talking earlier, if you are dealing with something and you can't reply on the radio, you don't almost have to, because you've already got some of that information. The other thing you can send, so I've played around with streaming video to it.
That'd be cool.
So yeah, I had, again, something on a Raspberry Pi 5, so a little computer attached to a video camera, something that you could set up potentially. So you think about stag position, for example. You could put a thermal camera or a night vision camera on that connected to these little computers, or anything that you can connect to the internet, and then you could view them either through your device, or potentially you could basically run it like a CCTV in the actual command center, so that you're reducing manpower. More people can get rest, they're more available, etc. like that. So that's one option. Drone footage is something that has been done. I haven't got that far yet, but that is something that I'd like to do in the future. And then the other big one, yeah. So it's the fact. Yes, exactly. So if you think about the drone operator sat, if he sat in a building or anything like that, or potentially in a hole in the ground, as we would be at work, he's being able to see the drone footage himself, but he could then stream it to the commander on the ground. If you've got a recce call sign who have been looking at this position and got the drone up, they can then say to the team that are going to assault that position, right, drone footage is up, look at it, and you can get a better picture, knowledge of the ground. So that's kind of the things that we're playing with at the moment. Images. So if you've got, again, if I look at work, could be recce call signs getting pictures of a fortified position. If I turn it to Milsim, it could be the event organizer wants to push out some photos of a HVT. Right, he can send it to everybody rather than having to call everyone back into camp and have to look at it, or breaking that kind of immersion with WhatsApp. He can upload it to the server itself, and they can then view that on their devices themselves. Makes it a lot more streamlined. So that's kind of where I'm at to at the moment. I've got quite a few projects I'm working on that sort of front, including these little devices. So these are actually radios. These are known as LoRa radios. So they work on a ultra high frequency. This one actually gives me GPS data based on where it's at. So you basically Bluetooth or connect it to your phone. And then you can actually send, it's up to about 250 characters, but you can effectively send a text message over those radios to each other. The benefit of these radios is they do a thing called mesh networking. So the more that you have on the ground connected within a network, you can pass the messages between. So say I've got 100-meter distance that I can send this message. It will send it to one device, but if I want to send it 400 meters and I've got one every 100 meters, it will basically send it through, so I can send it a lot further. I know there's been tests done. Yeah. My plan is very much to be able to put these in like certain strategic buildings, for example, say Longmoor, and be able to create a whole network. So obviously everyone can communicate no matter where they are on the site. So if you can't get a radio signal because you're too far away or you've got buildings in the way, you could send it, you can send messages.
Just to chip in there, so to give an idea, I don't know about the LoRa devices and things like that, but the apparent Meshtastic range test, the ground record, so this is ground to ground communication, was 331 kilometers between two devices.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, and I would have very much imagined that was probably up a mast, using different antennas. But even if, like you say, even if you can get 400, 500 meters, if you put them strategically around somewhere like Longmoor in the buildings, you could very much create the network itself, which would be very easy to do. The GPS one, so this one here, I'm trying to take the GPS data from this and feed it into ATAK. So if you lose cell signal, if you lose your 5G, you'll still be able to communicate your position to ATAK and to everyone else via that device itself. So you stick that in a pouch or in your day sack when you're on the ground. It's powered by USB-C, or you can buy the little like RC batteries, like the little. They can also go in the back of this on a circuit board and power it, and that'll power for a couple of days quite easily. You'll be able to sort of send your data via that, which is very handy.
So you could literally just kind of like poke it inside, say, like any pouch that you're not going to drop it out of, and just walk around with it, no problem whatsoever, and that's it. You're set up as long as you've got power in it.
Pretty much, yeah. So you just Bluetooth to this device. So effectively, what happens is, you type on your keyboard on your phone using ATAK or the app, depending on what you've got. You type the message out like you would on a normal text message. It then obviously Bluetooths to this device. This device then sends it out across the network. It then receives the message and sends it, Bluetooths it back to your phone. So you've got a whole like text channel, if you like, text messaging service going on your phone via something like the Meshtastic app. But it's using a radio. So if you don't have phone signal, it doesn't matter because you're actually using a radio frequency to send the messages. I know really cool. Abby, I think, was asking about using Meshtastic.
Yes. Yeah, I think LandNav just brought it up as well.
Yeah. So it's a really good idea because it's a radio frequency. It does have certain limits. You won't be able to send photos. You're limited by the amount of data. It has to be quite a small package. So this here was so that was us at Longmoor using ATAK as a team, which was really handy. I think at one point we were getting contacted by our own team. We literally looked on. We didn't know that at the time. We looked on ATAK, realized it was friendly, got on the radio and basically went, yeah, like you're contacting friendly troops, like stop it. And it instantly fixed that issue. This is a tablet we used last weekend. So we had 6 of us down at Skirmish Wickham just doing a test. So you can see up sort of in the middle screen, the little green and blue dots there, like location of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started to build out a map of the actual site itself. So the little red boxes that you can see down to the bottom of the screen, they're actual like structures that were built by the skirmish site themselves. So if you go to a site regularly, you can build out like a map of the area, for example, like that, and actually start to, so you can kind of get an idea of like positional positions, and then obviously set locations and stuff like that. Let me have a quick.
Does that work? This is going to start sounding super geeky, but does that work purely off of Google Maps, Ryan, or can you import other like GIS data into it?
I can import whatever I want, mapping wise. That is certain mapping. That is Google mapping, to be fair, at least. I know on ATAK, which is the iPhone version of TAC, it doesn't come as standard. So I had to import that.
Ryan, you've just cut out, I think.
Can't hear you, mate.
Bad comms.
Nah, it's bad
I'll be honest with
comms.
you. I am quite happy that it's Ryan's, because I thought all of a sudden my radio that just went completely dead. I was like, oh no, it's done it again.
His AirPods have died.
It's always important to charge your radios, ladies and gentlemen, before you go to the event.
Am I back now?
Yeah,
back
there you
now,
go.
Yeah, back.
Right, it's where I've picked up my phone because it's all connected. That's a nightmare. I'm just trying to find, which is a nightmare. I'll tell you what. Let me quickly show that. It'd be easier for us.
It'd be easier for me to show something on ATAK.
You can't hear us now.
No.
Oh, I think you can hear us. He's smirking. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
For our audio listeners, Ryan is showing us a picture of Longmoor that he has already built a map
Yes,
of
a map.
in ITAC or ATAC.
Yeah. So that is just an
Is
example
ITAC
of like
compatible with ATAC?
Yes. So
Yes.
I have. We have had ATAK and ITAC users communicate on the same network, so it's not a drama if if people are using different phones to be able to sort of see each other or anything like that.
James Underwood
yeah,
just says, "Get out my house."
Yeah. But yeah, it was quite to get the tax. It took a little bit of knowledge to get the tax server up and running. But I mean, in terms of like cost and stuff like that, it was did it for about 100, like just under 150 quid. The stable internet connection is probably the biggest thing. But that now sits at a friend's house, plugged into his hardwired into his Ethernet, and I just from my location, if I need to do anything, I can just go in remotely from where I am now using a VPN and just change. So I'm looking for the next event to get it up and running. I could just then start creating profiles, send out that information. For ITAC users, it's really easy because it's just a zip file. So create a zip file, send them the zip file, and they just import it, and they're instantly connected once they've connected to the VPN.
Yeah,
It'd be interesting to know if you could integrate proper survey data into that. So rather than have it based off a Google map, whether you could bring it in like I don't know, there's various formats for it, but I know from sort of my civil engineering sort of background that obviously you can get like proper topographical surveys and the like. So if you could fly a drone over a site, I mean, obviously Longmoor is probably a little bit restrictive, but if you could fly a drone over a site and get a proper spectrum map of the area that can obviously run through the foliage, and then you could get a proper topographical location. So rather than just sort of trying to build it on a Google Earth image, you could actually have real world position to world coordinates based off that then.
Yeah, so There's two things I'm currently looking at. So the first one is OS mapping. So putting in like OS maps. So if you were, for example, wanting to use it for going out to the likes of, I'm going to say it, Brecon, or anywhere like that, then it would be a potential. I just need the right files. The other thing is LandNav has built I think it's a GTX file for a site where he's walked around with different GPS devices, built in all the paths that are under tree cover. And I have seen videos of people overlaying that onto the map itself with like an element of transparency. So again, the photo of you saw at the weekend was quite covered by trees. There's obviously quite a lot of paths. So you could lay that over the top, and it would give you a much better indication of where the paths are and stuff like that, which would be quite handy. That's something I just need a little bit of time to play with, but it's definitely doable. The drama I'm having at the moment is I only have an iPhone. I'm a MacBook user and an iPhone user, so I don't have a full version of ATAK. So I'm very limited as to what I can actually do at the moment.
So is that the problem that you're finding at the moment in regards to like iPhone and like iOS and Android sort of communication between the two programs? Like,
so there's no communication issue. Like people that are on Android can talk to iPhone. I can get them all on the server and all communicate fine. It's more just the fact of there are certain things. There's less features, if you like, in ATAK than there is in ATAK itself.
Right.
So you're limited a little bit on as to what you can do. That's again, something like so you've got WinTAK, which is for Windows. Having a keyboard, a mouse, you think how much more precise you can be, for example. We found at the weekend that having a tablet over a phone was just so much easier to see. So if you were a commander on the ground or if you were in a static location, either a tablet or a laptop would be a lot more useful. So that's where my learning curve is stumped a little bit at the moment. I need to get an Android device, and ideally a Windows computer to be able to actually play around with some of the features, because they do import slightly differently.
Interesting.
But for using it at Milsim, generally it's not. I can send photos to each other. You can see, like I say, you can build all the mapping, like I've done for Longmore, all the what I would call overlays. So positional data for certain bits and pieces, you can do absolutely fine.
No, really
conscious
cool.
of the time, so let's just run through a couple of the comments we've got left. So Jables, surely creating a few small how-to videos won't be an issue for you, Ryan.
It's time at the moment. I've got so many projects on the go. But what do you want? Do you want ATAK how-to videos, or do you want?
This was in reference to the Biofang stuff. This was earlier in the chat.
This is.
I'm just not. I'm not. The thing is, I'm not an expert. My comms knowledge is very diversified because of, I don't play with bare things at work, for example, like that. So I understand frequencies, I understand antennas, but you'd be much better off going on YouTube for the how-to videos. You'll get a lot better understanding from there.
Top tip on that: read the manual that comes with them, because it literally goes through each setting and tells you what it does.
No, that doesn't.
And
no.
I want a video or an audio description.
Yeah.
Chris, on the subject of PTTs, so is the green port available from JCI, or are you just flogging yours? Lol.
Definitely not flogging mine. You can speak to him. They are hard to get hold of. But yeah, he does do some really good work. So I would go and speak to him if you do want some stuff. Having said that, I do know Emmett over at 5.4 has just done some work with a friend of mine to get dual PTTs off the ground. So I'm sure he'd appreciate the business and be looking for a little bit more experience doing stuff like that.
No, just quickly. Daniel says my little potato man, tomato man.
Dan,
Hello, Dan. By the way,
Bigfoot Airsoft Ghillie Sniper. Random question: would a bone conducting headset like the Code Red work under a ghillie balaclava?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Have you guys used bone conduction like the Code Red?
Yes.
Right. I struggle with mine. So I would suggest, and based on how much they are, I'd just suggest if you can get hold of one to try it out first, go ahead and do that, because I don't think they're good for everybody. And I don't know if it's my one specifically.
But
I find some... I might do. I need to play around with it a little bit more, but I stopped using mine for a while because I found that I couldn't, like the receiver and the transmitter and everything like that, it just wasn't picking me up properly. And I had to
that could be just be where it's sitting on your head then.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it's a case of like my head is the shape it is, and the headset I couldn't get it to kind of position any better. So yeah. All I was going to say is just don't go out and just throw a load of money at it, because sometimes these things you can't necessarily just return them again afterwards, and that's a lot of outlay just to try something. So if you can try one in advance, it's worthwhile. Landhav challenge: would it be good to have real mapping with the recce team to help build the digital? Would it be good to have real mapping with the recce team to help build the digital map? You mentioned OS mapping. Landhav challenge is obviously is pricked up. So.
I think it really depends where you are. Like I said, the couple of places I've tried it recently, ATAK wise, and has been very heavy foliage, so you haven't got a lot of the ground information because it's been within a wood block. But if you're using it over a much larger area or an open area, I'm thinking of, is it Mad Dog or something like that? Airsoft, like one of their sites is quite open. It's just basically a big field with obstacles and stuff like that. Would be fine. Longmore, like again, you're not going to get information as to the inside of a building, but it gives you at least an understanding of these people are in this building, which is quite handy. So you wouldn't necessarily need the OS mapping for somewhere like Longmore as an example, or Copial Down.
Work quite well at Redcon as well, I'd reckon.
Yeah, Redcon, I think it'd be spot on for Redcon, I think, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there's enough open areas there.
Yeah.
James said, to find, we have a fairly good RO's how-to guide that we issue for events. All of our comms plans reference the Baofeng menu numbers for setup. So,
I don't think I've ever read that guide. Sorry, James. I just haven't read it.
I'll be honest. as soon as you put read, like 90% of airsofters just went done.
Yeah. And just lastly, a big shout out to all of our members of the audience who are under 6 foot.
5'11".
5'11".
Right.
He's
on
going
that
to kill
note,
me this weekend.
Yeah.
We'll be back Wednesday, 8 o'clock next week. I apologise. I don't know what we're doing next week. I know that Andy, you've been lining up some guests.
Yeah, so we have got a new Airsoft and Milsim site.
Yes.
That is coming on. So we will be joined by, if you read me 2 seconds, just bringing up his name because I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Tactical something.
So the Tactical Delta Group Airsoft site, and we will be joined by Pablo.
Cool.
So join us on that. It will be interesting to see a new Milsim company / site. Get some information off of him, and
I might
get the options out there.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
It's nice to know that you don't join us for the rest of the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one sounds really good. All the rest
Yeah,
of them
that one. Yeah.
If
Hey,
you want to get in touch with
I've been
us
away in
about-
Cyprus. It used to finish at midnight for me for 2 years, so it's been
Yeah.
very hard.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I bet you'll watch
wanna
this
get in-
one back over and over again, though, wouldn't you, Ryan?
Absolutely not. I hate myself.
Really love Ryan.
There's going to be
Yeah,
so
I
many
love
stickers
Ryan.
made from this one.
Yeah.
No, I've got a
If you
few
want to get in
screenshots
touch
on
with
mine.
the show, you can email us at nofochat@hotmail.com. Our Instagram is at November_Foxtrot_NoFo, and the website is novemberfoxtrot.co.uk. You can also get in touch with us on our own individual Instagrams of at 9volt_airsoft for myself, at @callsign_quartermaster for Andy, at at onelegion.uk_Pegasus for Ash, and James, Ryan James. How do you want people to contact you?
Don't.
I mean,
No.
not
Radio.
Radio frequency
Radio.
439.
Yeah, I wish I could do that. No, get in touch with me through JBG Airsoft. Check out the website at jbgairsoft.co.uk for some cool swag, some training courses, all things coming up. And then Instagram wise is JBG Airsoft as well. So you can contact me through that way.
And if not, we can always pass over a message for you.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. And likewise, if you want to get any early questions in for next week, then please feel free to get in touch with us, and we can put you at the head of the queue in terms of the list of questions that we will have. Or just join the show live, put a queue at the beginning, and then we'll pick it out from there. So, right. Oh, Marky Mark, best be a good episode next week. It's my birthday.
Oh,
Happy
right.
birthday in
Well,
advance.
I'm not going to
Remind
say it
us.
I'm not going to say it until next week. It's
Remind
not
us,
your
'cause I might
birthday yet.
It forced him to tune in as well then.
Yeah.
On that note, James Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you
It's
very
been an
much.
absolute
mate.
pleasure.
Thank you very much.
I
no
learned
doubt, man.
some things.
Yeah.
In my
I was going to say, we'll have to do a
brain.
part 2 of this.
Yeah.
Definitely have to do a part 2. What we'll do, I'll tell you what, we could do a radio, like, I don't know, clinic where people just come online and just like, right, I've got these problems with my radio, how do I fix it? And then Ryan Ryan becomes like the doctor of radios.
Oh God, am I gonna have to wear a coat?
No.
Yeah. We'll get you one of our orange lab coats. Yeah. Bend over, Bofang.
We have closing words for the show. Ryan, do you want to give some closing words? Maybe some advice on like top tips of things not to do or what to do.
Before you send on the net, have a think about what you want to send, and then send it. But make sure you keep it short because someone else needs to talk as well.
Nice. Like that.
That's good advice.
Nice.
Like it. Nice one. All right, on that note, we'll see you next week. Have an absolutely cracking week.
Hope you shall.
Say goodbye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye,
Goodbye, guys.
Stay NoFo.
Later.
Ciao, Bella. In it.
Rag
Nice one.
one. Bye, bye.